There have been quite a few monster taming games over the years that have tried to capture that classic Pokemon feeling. You know the one I mean, that old school adventure where you leave home, step into a strange world, start collecting creatures, build a team, battle trainers, explore towns, and slowly become stronger as your monsters grow alongside you. But every now and then a game comes along that does more than just remind you of Pokemon. It takes that familiar foundation, keeps the charm, and then starts adding its own weird, interesting, and honestly very cool ideas on top of it. And that is exactly why today we are talking about Monster Crown Sin Eater. This game has just released on Steam. There is a demo available if you want to try it first, and if you are a fan of Pokemon monster taming games, creature collectors, or old school turn-based RPGs, then I think this is one you should definitely have on your radar. Because while Monster Crown Sin Eater absolutely has that older Pokemon-style layout and structure, it also has its own identity. And the more time I spent with it, the more I started to realize that this is not just another monster catching game trying to live in Pokemon's shadow. There is something different here. There is something strange here. And most importantly, there is something really fun here. My name is Solo and welcome back to the channel. Before we get properly into it, if you enjoy videos on monster taming games, RPGs, indie games, and hidden gems that deserve more attention, then leaving a like on the video and subscribing to the channel would be very much appreciated. So yes, Monster Crown Sin Eater. This is a very interesting one. Right away, the easiest way to describe it is that it feels like an older Pokemon game, but with a darker, stranger, and much more experimental edge. You have the top-down world, the towns, the routes, the turn-based battles, the wild monsters, and that familiar sense of building your own team as you travel. But where Monster Crown Sin Eater starts to separate itself is in what it lets you actually do with those monsters, because this is not just about catching a creature, leveling it up, maybe evolving it and calling it a day. No. This game really leans into the idea of creating your own monsters, and that is where the breeding and fusion systems come in. The breeding system is one of the main things that makes Monster Crown Sin Eater stand out. You can breed your monsters together, create eggs, and then those eggs hatch after you have walked around for a while. It gives the game that really satisfying loop where you are constantly thinking about what combinations you want to try next. You are not just asking what monster do I want on my team, you are asking what could this monster become if I breed it with this one. And that is a very different kind of hook. It makes collecting monsters feel more personal, it makes experimenting feel rewarding. And it gives you a reason to keep going back, keep testing things, and keep seeing what kind of creatures you can create. Then on top of that, you also have the fusion system, and honestly, this is probably one of the coolest parts of the game. The fusion system lets you combine monsters in a way that can make your new monster genuinely powerful. You are able to choose the best stats from each monster, which means if you have one monster with great attack and another with a stronger defense or speed, you can start thinking about how to bring those strengths together. That is a really fun idea, because it means team building is not just about finding the strongest monster in the wild, it is about planning, it is about experimenting, it is about taking monsters you like and trying to turn them into something even better. And for monster taming fans, that is exactly the kind of system that can become addictive. You start off thinking, I'll just try this one combination. Then suddenly you are 10 combinations deep, walking around, waiting for eggs to hatch, checking stats, comparing attacks, and wondering what happens if you fuse this monster with that one instead. That is the magic of this game. It gives you that constant feeling of discovery, and I think that is one of the most important things a monster taming game can have, because the best creature collectors are not just about having a big monster list, they are about making you want to engage with that monster list, they are about making you curious, they are about making you look at a creature and think, what can I do with you? Monster Crown Sin Eater does that very well. Now, the combat itself is turn-based, and if you have played Pokemon or other classic monster RPGs, you are going to understand the basic rhythm very quickly. You send out your monster, you choose your attack, the enemy takes their turn, and the battle plays out from there. But I do want to give credit to the effects of the monster spells and attacks, because there is a nice amount of style to them. They are not just bland little hits. The attacks have personality, and the spell effects help give each monster a little bit more flavor, and in a game like this, that matters. Because when you are going to be battling a lot, you need the combat to have enough visual charm that it does not become boring too quickly. I also really like one specific quality of life feature here. You can change your learned attacks whenever you like to something the monster has learned before. That might sound like a small thing, but it is actually a really nice feature. In a lot of older monster taming games, choosing moves can feel stressful because you are worried about permanently replacing something useful. But here, being able to go back and change attacks, it gives you more freedom. It lets you experiment more, it lets you adjust your monster depending on what you are doing. And honestly, I wish more games in the genre handled moves like this. It makes the game feel less restrictive without removing the strategy. You still have to think about what attacks you want, you still have to make choices, but you are not punished as harshly for trying something new. That is a good balance. Another feature I really enjoyed is that you can ride your monsters. And again, that might seem like a simple thing, but it adds a lot of charm. There is just something satisfying about not only collecting these creatures and battling with them, but actually using them to move around the world. It helps them feel more like companions rather than just things you keep in a menu. That is something monster taming games always benefit from. The more connected you feel to your monsters, the more the game works, and Monster Crown Sin Eater seems to understand that. Visually, the game has that old school monster RPG feel, but it is not just copying Pokemon. The layout is familiar, yes, but the game has its own charm. Feels a little darker, a little stranger, and a little more unusual than the games it is clearly inspired by. And that is a good thing, because let's be honest, there are a lot of monster taming games out there now. If a game wants to stand out, it needs more than just Pokemon but indie. Monster Crown Sin Eater has that familiar structure, but the breeding, fusion, atmosphere, and monster designs help give it its own identity. The world has personality, the monsters have personality, and the systems make you want to keep playing. That is what really matters. Now, if you are someone who grew up with the older Pokemon games, I think you're going to feel at home pretty quickly. The top-down exploration, the turn-based combat, the collecting, the team building, all of that is here. But the game also has a slightly rougher, more experimental feeling, and I actually mean that in a good way. It feels like an indie game that is willing to be weird. It feels like a game made by people who clearly love the genre, but who also wanted to push certain parts of it further, especially with the monster creation systems. And for me, that is where the game becomes very easy to recommend, because if you are the kind of player who just wants to catch 6 monsters, finish the story and move on, you can probably do that. But if you are the kind of player who loves breeding, stat building, team optimization, rare combinations, and seeing what bizarre creatures you can create, then this game is probably going to get its hooks into you. There are a lot of monsters to collect, a lot of combinations to mess around with, and a lot of potential for creating a team that feels like it is genuinely yours. That is the big selling point. Your team does not have to look like everyone else's team. Your strongest monster might not be something you just found, it might be something you made, and that is really cool. Of course, I do think it is worth mentioning that this style of game is not going to be for everyone. If you are expecting the polish and smoothness of a major Nintendo release, you have to remember that this is a smaller indie title. It has its own style, its own pace, and its own quirks, but for me, those quirks are part of the charm. The important thing is that the core loop works. Collect monsters, battle, breed, hatch eggs, fuse monsters, improve your team, explore more of the world, find new creatures, repeat. That loop is strong, and once a monster taming game gets that loop right, it becomes very easy to lose time in it. You sit down for a quick session, just planning to hatch 1 egg or test 1 fusion, and suddenly you are still playing much later because you want to see what the next combination gives you. That is exactly the kind of thing I want from this genre. And because the game has a demo on Steam, it is also very easy to recommend trying it first. You do not have to go in blind. You can download the demo, get a feel for the world, test the combat, see how the monsters look, and decide whether the style clicks with you. But if you are already a monster taming fan, I think there is a very good chance this one will grab your attention, especially because the price is around that $20 range, which makes it a pretty easy pickup compared to a lot of full price releases. But what it is offering, a full monster taming RPG with breeding, fusion, turn-based combat, lots of monsters, rideable creatures, and a demo to test it out, I think that is a pretty fair deal. And honestly, this is the kind of game I like seeing on Steam. A game that knows its audience, a game that knows exactly what monster taming fans enjoy, and a game that is not afraid to go a little bit deeper with its systems. All told, Monster Crown Sin Eater is a very easy recommendation for fans of Pokemon-style games, especially if you want something familiar, but also different enough to feel fresh. It has the old school layout, it has the turn-based battles, it has the collecting, but then it adds breeding, egg hatching, fusion, stat selection, attack swapping, monster riding, and a huge amount of room for experimentation. That is a strong package. And while I still think people should try the demo first to see if the style works for them, I can safely say this is one that monster taming fans should be paying attention to, because if you have been waiting for another creature collector to sink your teeth into, this might be exactly what you are looking for. So, What do you think of Monster Crown Sin Eater? Have you tried the demo yet, or have you already picked up the full game? And if you have, I'd love to know what kind of monsters you've been breeding and fusing together, because that seems like one of the most exciting parts of the whole game. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. If you enjoyed the video, leaving a like and subscribing to the channel would be massively appreciated, especially if you want to see more monster taming games, indie RPGs and hidden gems covered here. But for now, that's going to do it from me. My name is Solo. Thank you so much for watching. Take care of yourself, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.